Hey guys, Travis here. So today I want to talk about meditation, or more specifically mindfulness. So about 9 months ago now, I took a course up at the university on mindfulness meditation. And that wasn't my first exposure to meditation. Back in my early 20s when I started studying jiu-jitsu, I got exposed to meditation and did some of that. And liked the results. I had some, I'd say, interesting experiences with it. But, as life goes on and time progresses, you get away from that practice and you get involved in other things. And went through a pretty stressful period in my life for about 10 years, and financially especially. And towards the end of that, I was reaching also the end of kind of my career in radio. I did talk radio for 4 years. And so at that point, at the end of talk radio, that was at the end of the 2016 election, which was brutal for most people. I don't, regardless of whether you're Democrat or Republican or something else, it was a tough year, and there's just a lot of strife and a lot of stress, and definitely I felt that on the radio show. And so towards the end there, I was going through lots of health problems, for one thing, a lot of digestive problems. And some of that I think was medical, but some of it was stress. And so financially, by that point, things had turned a corner. I got into a small business for a couple of years at that point, and things were going a lot better financially. And so a lot of the problems that I had been going through had resolved. So things were a lot better, but I still was not dealing with stress very well, or anytime something came up, if something financially came up, an unexpected bill or something, it really took a toll on me. And so I wasn't coping with things very well. And so I decided to get away from talk radio. I'd had enough of that, and politics and all the rest for a while. But, and I thought that would help relieve some of the stress. It's a pretty toxic environment, honestly. But I still didn't cope very well with stress for a while. So about 9 months ago, in the course of just trying to get into things that I enjoy. So it wasn't just that I wanted to eliminate things from my life that were stressful, but it was that I wanted to incorporate things that would be beneficial and that I would enjoy, and just go out and start enjoying life instead of just spending every day trying to solve all the world's problems and all the rest. So one of the pursuits that I got involved in was just reading about not even history anymore. I got away from history and a lot of the serious type of stuff, and I started reading psychology. Was something that interested me. I like understanding people and why they think the way they do. So one of the books that I read was Stealing Fire, which is about flow state, and probably a subject we'll get into in another video. But in that book, basically, they talk about different ways that people get into this flow state, whether it's a high state of thought process and clarity and performance. And so a lot of elite athletes, skydivers and rock climbers and people like that get into this state of mind where they're hyper productive and almost, I don't want to say clairvoyant, but they can almost kind of anticipate things before they happen, or the brain's just kind of working really fast. When I was reading about it, what I was reminded of was Michael Jordan, watching him back in the 90s. That's how old I am. And just watching how incredible the things were that he would do, and how sometimes he'd just get in that zone and he wouldn't miss. And that would be kind of one way that I would explain flow state. Anyhow, so as I was reading about this, there's various ways that people get into this state, and one of them was meditation. And specifically in the book, they talked about mindfulness-based stress reduction. And so I thought, oh, that sounds cool. I'll check that out, and started looking it up on Google, and just found that here in our local university that they offered a course on it. So I took the 8-week course, and I can tell you that 9 months into it, a lot has changed for me. I think there's a lot of benefit. That's why I want to talk about it, just to kind of give you maybe something to consider doing. I think that mental health is a lot like physical health. When it comes to diet and exercise, you can't really eat one healthy meal a year and be healthy, and you can't go to the gym once a year and be fit. It has to be part of a lifestyle. And I think that mental health is the same way, and that's one of the reasons I took the course, so that I could establish a routine. We had to do it every day for 45 minutes for 8 weeks, and we had homework, and we had to come in and talk to each other about our experiences in meditation. And so it created some accountability, and it got me in a routine. So back to the idea that mental fitness is like physical fitness. So people vary in their degree of fitness. You have people who are natural athletes when it comes to physical fitness. They're fast, or they're strong, or they have great cardio, or they're natural swimmers, or whatever it is. And you have a lot of the rest of us who are not. And mental health is the same too. I have lots of friends and family, my wife, that just seem to be really healthy mental. Like, they don't have problems. They don't seem to get depressed. They don't get discouraged. They just kind of hum along at a normal pace, and that's great. And then I have some friends, I was going to say, I'm looking at you, Dave. I have some friends out there that are kind of the opposite and struggle often and have a lot of depression. And I've been through both. I've definitely experienced both. And I don't think at this point that I have any kind of like bipolar disorder, though that runs in my family. In fact, I know that one of my issues was chemical. I'll get into that in another video as well. But a lot of my stresses were just like everybody else. It came from life and from difficulties, and financial and otherwise. So meditation really has helped me to overcome a lot of that. And it's the thing. I think the first thing I want to stress is that it's not some process wherein every time you deal with a stressor or a stressful event that you've got to sit down and rub your earlobes and you chant something. And that's not really, at least that's not what I do. That's not what mindfulness-based stress reduction is. And I'll also say that there's a lot of people out there you can find on YouTube or elsewhere who can tell you a lot more about meditation than I can. Right off the top, I'd recommend Dan Harris, 10% Happier is a great book. You'll Google him you'll put him on YouTube and you'll find stuff immediately. Sam Harris is another one. Both of those guys have made careers or semi-careers out of talking about meditation, so they can articulate it even better than I can. But I'll tell you what I notice is that just little things, even like when I'm driving and somebody cuts you off, we can all relate to that. I've certainly had the experience where I'm intensely angry and I might yell and get upset in the car. And then I've noticed after meditating for a while, that just didn't happen. One of the things they talk about in mindfulness-based stress reduction is sort of being an observer of your own thoughts and emotions. And so I'd find that more often when those kind of situations would arise, that I didn't have to control the reaction just didn't happen. Somebody would cut me off or do something stupid, and I just wasn't upset, and I was just observing, and I could see maybe that they were upset, and that didn't upset me. It just didn't have that effect. So it's not like, I guess what I'm trying to say is that it will pay dividends when you're not meditating. You're going to meditate maybe 20 minutes a day, 45 minutes a day, maybe 10 minutes a day, whatever works for you. But over time, there's going to be a cumulative benefit, and you're not going to have to think about it. You're not going to have to necessarily control yourself. Those emotions just aren't going to happen in the same way. I'll tell you that the first night of doing, well, for me anyway, our first night in the MBSR class, we did this little raisin exercise I tell people about. So spoiler alert, if you go to take the class, you might encounter this. But what the instructor does is they come around and they give you just a few raisins in your hand, like 3 or 4. And the instruction is to look at those raisins like you don't know what they are, that you've never seen raisins before. And so you take the raisin, you don't eat it right away, you look at it and you think about it and you examine it, and of course the teacher says, well, what's your impression of the raisin? And I say, well, I wouldn't eat it. Like, that doesn't look like something I'd put in my mouth if I didn't know what it was. But so eventually you pick it up, you look at it, you smell it, you put it in your mouth, but you don't bite it. You kind of feel it with your tongue and you move it around a little bit, and eventually you eat it. And so the point of all this is that you're being very involved in what's going on in this moment, paying attention to this moment. And that's what mindfulness basically means, that you're paying attention to what's going on in the here and the now. And when you start to practice that, you realize how much you're either dwelling in the past or thinking about the future, worrying about the future. So the exercise and the point of mindfulness is to bring you more focused into the moment as it is right now. And it's interesting, when you do eat the raisins, like you, one at a time, you really kind of do get a sense of all the different flavors and experiences of eating a raisin. And so for me, when I did this exercise, actually, what I realized was, the teacher said, how do you normally eat raisins? And we all said, well, like a handful at a time. And it occurred to me that that's how I'm living life. I'm living life a handful at a time. I think that we all do that. And then it further occurred to me that, how when you are young, it seems like time goes very slowly. So you're a kid and you're trying to get to the weekend and you're trying to get through the school week, like it takes forever to get to the weekend. And then when you get to be a certain age, maybe in your 20s somewhere, life starts to seem to go really, really fast. And as I thought about it, it seems to me that at least part of that is because we stop being mindful. We stop living in the moment. Things go really quickly when you're not really there experiencing it. So that's just some ideas of what mindfulness is about, maybe some of the benefits that it could bring to you in your life, or that it has in mine. I guess to kind of also just wrap up by giving you an idea of what meditation is, so that if you're curious about it, maybe this will encourage you to examine it a little bit closer. So in mindfulness, you basically sit still in a quiet place, and you can sit pretty much comfortably. It can be done laying down, it can be done sitting in a chair, you can sit Indian style or crisscross applesauce, however you prefer. But you sit comfortably and quietly for a period of time. 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 20 minutes, 45 minutes. And what you do is you try to create one object of awareness, as it's called. So one of the things you can do is focus on your breath, how it sounds or how it feels in your nostrils or how it feels in your chest or in your abdomen, wherever you feel it. You can also do one where you focus on just the sounds around you, the ambient sounds. And when you stop and you do that, and you start hearing things like your dishwasher running or something going on in the neighbor's yard or whatever it is, you'll recognize how much sound there is in the environment that you weren't paying any attention to. But you narrow your focus down to something as simple as that, and you do that for an extended period of time. Now here's what's going to happen. Within 1 to 2 seconds, or within 30 seconds, or however long it takes for you, you're going to start daydreaming about something. You're going to daydream about what you want to do later, about the movie you want to see, about some food you want to eat, about a conversation you had with somebody. Everyone does that. That's exactly how the mind works. And the exercise of meditation is really disciplining your mind not to just run off like that. So what happens is, when you start daydreaming, at some point you'll recognize the fact that you're daydreaming. And so you try to stop. And you try to focus on whatever you were focusing on, whether it's your breath or the ambient sounds or whatever it is. You bring your focus back to that object of awareness, and that's the exercise. Every time you do that, Dan Harris calls that like a bicep curl for your brain. Every time you do that, where you catch yourself daydreaming about something and you bring yourself back to focusing in the moment, that's the exercise. So what you have to do is not get frustrated with yourself when you start daydreaming, because that's the point of what you're doing, and everyone does it. That's normal. So, because you'll tell people about meditation and they'll go, oh, I can't do that, and I can't sit still for that long, or I can't clear my mind. Yes, you can. And you don't have to do it for that long either. Take 10 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever it is to begin with, and try it. And just try to bring yourself back to the moment. Now, the other thing you can do too is, certainly there are people out there, you can buy books, you can read books about it, you can go to classes like I did about it. And also, there's plenty of meditation apps that you can get. So there's the one that I use, which is, I think it's just called the Meditation Timer app. I mean, you can look in the app store for meditation timer apps. I think Dan Harris has one, the 10% Happier app or something like that. Headspace is another one that a lot of people use. So you can go in there, and there's guided meditations, things like the body scan. You can just look that up and find out for yourself what that is. But you can, if you can't afford to go to a class, or if you can't find somebody in your area who offers a class, you can get instruction on meditation just from downloading an app. So I'd highly recommend that if you have any interest in it, that you should check it out, or at least just give it an honest try. I mean, listen, I don't think everything works for everyone. I know what works for me, and what I'm going to talk about on this channel are what my experiences are. I'm not an expert really in any of the stuff that I'll discuss, but I do have experiences with it, and I think that they may give you some idea of things. Okay, guys, if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. If you're interested in more content like this, go ahead and subscribe. You can also find me on Facebook at Travis Talks and on my website at travistalks.net. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk again soon.